Get started. Welcome everyone. I'm Gerard Bini from Orgone Effects Australia. This is a talk on 5G. I call it 5G Take 2. As I said, we had our first 5G talk 2 weeks ago, webinar, sorry. We had a few technical issues, which my fault, sorry, but we're going to do it again. And we also had a lot of questions after the last one, which we didn't get a chance to answer. And there were some really good questions too. And we'll go through them. So today what we'll do is we'll go through 10 things you need to know about 5G. That's just my phone saying Bing. It's called Bing Fever every time an order comes in. I might mute that. So 5G, what people don't know, and this is a really interesting one, and it's a big one too. So many people email us or ring us and say, oh, down the road from where I live, you know, there's a big tower that's just gone up and it's a 5G tower. And other people say to me, oh, there's a website out there, I can't remember the name of it, which is supposed to be listing all the 5G towers everywhere. Well, they're not 5G, they're actually all 4G, and I don't know why this website's misinforming the public. 5G goes up on LED streetlights, and a lot of the suburbs around Australia have been, or the councils in the suburbs around Australia have been installing those streetlights for a couple of years now. We live on the Mornington Peninsula, and the Peninsula Council put their 5G streetlights up about 3 years ago, and I've got an image here of the Peninsula streetlights. If you can see that there. It's a blurry photo, sorry, but this is in a suburb called Tyab, and underground power, and the streetlight is an LED streetlight, and it has a blue cone underneath. And that's what you look for. There's another photo of a LED streetlight in Adelaide City. We took this photo late June last year. We were in Adelaide for the Body Mind Psychic Expo, great expo. And on this photo, you'll see a little white box with 3 antennas hanging down.
Hi, Gerard. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
The sharing is not enabled at the moment, so we can't see it, the photos.
Okay, it's a technical fault.
There we go
again.
Perfect.
There we go. That's an LED streetlight newly installed in Adelaide. We took this photo this June last year, and they had just turned 5G on in the central business district of Adelaide about a week before we got there. And for 5G to be fully up and operational, you'll have these street lights, which will have a little blue antenna hanging underneath or below, or sometimes concealed. This one here is concealed. And the white box behind it is a secondary piece of technology that's required for 5G. Now, I'm no technical expert in communications, but I believe they are the repeaters. So in your area where you live, what you're looking for are street lights which are flat, and they're LED, and they'll have a blue cone antenna underneath. And every 4th, maybe 5th street light, you'll see this white piece of equipment. If you see both of them, you know that 5G is about to be turned on or is turned on. If you're sensitive to energy and you're in those areas, if you tune in, you'll actually feel a real heaviness in the air, which is the problem behind 5G. Okay, we did our testing in Canberra about this time last year. Oh, technical problem again. That's better. Okay, in this time last year in Canberra. Help me in, I'm a bit stuck here. There's what I need to do. I don't know why that's there, but we'll get around this anyway. Okay, better. We did our testing in Canberra, and the reason we did our testing in Canberra is, one, Canberra, some of the suburbs in Canberra were the first suburbs in Australia to actually have 5G set up. I don't know why it was there first, maybe to impress the politicians, I don't know. Before we said anything on our website about our products and 5G, we wanted to make damn sure that we'd done our testing and documented it so that no one could turn around and say, you're only saying this, you don't know what you're talking about, you haven't experienced it. Which is actually something that a lot of people on the internet who do talk about 5G, like you see a lot of very aggressive 5G YouTube videos out there, which are scaring the hell out of people. I know a lot of those people who've made those videos wouldn't know 5G if it hit them in the head, and I have questioned some of them, have they been to a 5G area, and they haven't, and they're claiming to be experts. So anyway, we went to Canberra, like Leanne and I, and we took a independent kinesiologist, Reese Posingis, and we did testing in the 5G zone in a suburb called Dixon. And we had done our research beforehand because Optus were advertising that Dixon had 5G and they were trying to sell 5G broadband in that suburb. And I'd assessed whether they had 5G operating by reading Google Earth, which is a skill I have and I've been doing for 20 years, reading different people's properties for different energy lines and different things, different types of radiation intuitively with Google Earth. So I had determined that yes, Dixon had 5G, that's where we're going to go. So we jumped on the plane, went to Dixon, got to Dixon to a small shopping centre area, and the first thing we noticed was, yes, the LED streetlights everywhere and these white repeaters on every fourth or fifth streetlight. I say that the 5G had not long been turned on because there were technicians working on some of those repeaters, which was really quite interesting. So when we were in Dixon, we were looking for different things. We wanted to know the dynamics behind 5G, like if it's radiation, and I can feel radiation fields, and I teach people how to do that. How is it operating? Is it going through the sky? Is it coming out of the ground? What's it doing? So the first thing we found in 5G, Dixon, in the 5G area, is, just pointing to notepad on me, is that there was a radiation charge coming out of the ground. It came out of the ground about 5 feet above the ground. And for a radiation charge to come out of the ground like that is not something that's abnormal. There are other types of energies that do actually create the same effect. It's actually a magnetoteretic energy that I've been doing some research from a website called spaceweather.com recently, which was explaining how when there are high solar winds, you get this magnetoteretic effect. So we had that magnetoteretic effect, which was the radiation charge coming out of the ground in the 5G zone. That was outside. What we then did was we went inside one of the commercial buildings there to do our testing inside in an office area, because it's more pertinent inside than outside. And what we found is and I know this for a fact anyway, when you have a radiation charge coming out of the ground, that's a positive charge, which causes electromagnetic stress in the body. When you get to a building, that charge fully engulfs the building. Well, buildings that are fully engulfed with radiation charge, and as I said, it's not an unusual thing. I see it all the time with other things going on in people's houses. When you have that going on, then you have a very, very, very high risk of mitochondrial damage or cell damage, meridian energy interference, people not being able to recover from illnesses when they should have been recovering quite quickly, and cancer. You get unhealthy cell growth because of the charge in the air. That's another subject you could go on and on and on about, but in a nutshell, yes. The other thing I found with what we found with 5G in a 5G area is that another form of Earth magnetic grid lines, which are normally not activated, and I've actually given these a name called activated grid lines, and these are Earth radiation lines that come out of the ground like this, but they're 2 meters wide, and they're at a grid spacing which is they run north, south, east, west, and they're roughly 70 meters apart. This grid is activated, and the charge or the intensity of the energy within the grid line is worse than either side of it. And we discovered this grid about 4 years ago occurring around at Christmas time when there were very, very high solar winds, which is another thing that creates that. It was actually running through our house at the time when we were living up the road, so to speak. And the geoclins harmonizer at the time did not neutralize this charge coming out of the ground. So we were well aware of it, and we were quite surprised to see it being activated by the presence of 5G. However, it stands to reason anyway. The next thing we found in the 5G zone is that things like healthy ley lines, and ley lines are Earth radiation lines, but they're radiant, they're healthy. Like if you live in a house that has a ley line running through it, and ley lines running in grids, then your house will be filled with a radiance, which is a strong negative charge, which is doesn't cause mitochondrial damage, that is in sympathy with the human body. It promotes healthy meridian balance and meridian energy. It promotes healthy emotional states and healthy people. But when the 5G comes along, those healthy ley lines totally get knocked out. They don't exist anymore. Ley lines are at the beck and call of the energetic environment around it. So when we have high solar winds, all the ley lines around the planet are all knocked out. When things settle down, and especially when we have favourable astrological conditions, and you know, some people laugh at astrology, but astrology is all about energy, and I've known that for a long time. When you have favourable astrological events, the ley line energies actually become stronger, but with the 5G, they just get totally wiped out. So if you're living in an area where, or in a house that's got a ley line running through it and everyone's happy and healthy and everything's going fine, along comes 5G, that disappears. And that could have quite a detrimental effect on people's physical and emotional condition. And it'd be a real shock to them too, because if they're in any way sensitive to energy, one day everything will be fine, the next minute, the next day when the 5G is turned on, they'll feel like a bus has hit them. Another thing that 5G does is we have an energy flow around the planet that when everything's favourable and in balance, it runs from north to south during the day and east to west. And east to west is an interesting one because the Indian yogis talk about when they meditate, they like to face east because they believe the spiritual energy flows from east to west. But with the 5G turned on in an area, the spiritual energies, the spiritual energies or the planetary flow stops and it reverses. And when it reverses, people who are sensitive to energy really do feel it. It's a real heaviness in the air. And that's when I get a lot of people ringing me saying, Gerard, what the hell is going on? You know, I woke up this morning and couldn't get out of bed and I was cranky as anything, and I got outside, I could feel something was going on and I don't know what it is. That's when the planetary flow of energy is reversed, which can happen when we have high solar winds. And I keep on harping on this solar wind thing because it's a good, when it occurs, it's a good equivalent to 5G operating. So when we have a very high solar winds, and I'm talking about wind speeds of 400 to 500 kilometres a second upwards, and we might get that, 2 or 3 days a month, maybe a week in a month. That's when the whole planet is in a virtual 5G environment. And people who know me are known to have heard me say occasionally, oh, look, we've got really high solar winds today. The whole world's living in a virtual 5G environment. So all those fearmongers out there, all the crazies out there who want to scare the hell out of people and cause anxiety cancer, who think they're experts, wouldn't know what's going on when we have high solar winds and the fact that we're in a virtual 5G environment. I've actually had a couple of times where I've rung some people who I know who are real fearmongers and said, guess what? It's 5G all over the world today. And they jump out of their pants. It's actually quite funny. So that's 5G in a nutshell. That's what it does. I don't measure 5G with EMF meters because EMF meters can give you dangerously wrong readings. And recently I was watching a YouTube video of a young English couple in George Street in Sydney. A lot of people watching this now may have actually seen that video. And this guy is running around with an EMF meter in George Street saying, look, the meter's going nuts. 5G's turned on here. Well, I can tell you now, 5G wasn't turned on. That meter was giving them the opinion that 5G was turned on. They were actually fearful. Like they were like, oh no, look at the meter, it's saying this. I'm sitting back laughing my head off because I'm reading the energy through the video and 5G was definitely not turned on. There are other things that were creating the high meter readings. So 5G works in zones when they put it in. This is another thing that people often ask me, and it's also too interesting because I think it's Telstra or Optus are now showing maps of 5G areas, and they'll show a map of a suburb and they'll show a round circle depicting the zone where 5G is, like there's a central point radiating out. I just laughed my head off and thinking, they're misinforming the public because that's just not the way it is. So I'll share my screen again, and if I get this right, I'll show you a photo, here we go. This is a screenshot from Google Earth, which I took today for a client. I think this is in Western Australia, it's a suburb of Perth, and they were wanting me to do a reading on their house, and there it is, 33B, whatever, Albany Highway, as to what radiation issues are going on there. And when I zoomed in and had a look, the first thing I'm looking for these days is 5G turned on. And so when they go into an area and turn 5G on, they go into a suburb which is delineated by main roads, which is marked in the red. And all these streets in here within this red triangle, they've all got 5G operating. Everything outside of it doesn't have it. Everything inside it does it. That's really how they set 5G up. So Dixon in Canberra in the ACT, it's if you look with certain aspects of Google Earth, it'll show up the boundaries of a suburb in bright yellow, and I can read that yes, one side of that boundary, the 5G is operating by the charge which I pick up through the screen. The other side of it is actually not operating. Interesting thing about Canberra too is that we went to Dixon because Optus had advertised it was operating there, and they were trying to sell Optus broadband, 5G broadband there, which I'm not anti-5G because we've got terrible NBN here and terrible NBN in our factory in Somerville, and I can protect my workers and ourselves and my wife from 5G with our geocleanse, which we test in Canberra and passed all the testing. So I'm dying for it to come along. We need, especially in my factory, we need the broadband, we need the higher speeds. But if you don't have that, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I'll actually show you, now I've got you on full screen, and this is Google Earth. Show you what I'm talking about. The next form of air travel will be as quick as this. Won't that be fantastic? I'll just move me out of the way. And see there the yellow lines making up, here we go, the suburb of Dixon. That's it there. Everything within this zone has 5G. Everything outside of it, either side, doesn't have 5G operating. Okay. So while we did our testing in Dixon, then we thought, oh, we'll go down to somewhere down the road, Belconnen, for lunch, and Optus had not advertised anywhere that Belconnen had 5G operating, and when we got there, all the streetlights were there, all the repeaters were there, and Belconnen was actually up and operating with 5G without anyone knowing, which I thought was really interesting. Okay, what I'll do now is go through some of the questions that we had from the last talk, and we've got some questions coming up in the chat. Okay, someone wanted to know about oxygen hemoglobin effect. That's a really interesting one. This is getting into the 5G and COVID-19 thing, and like I'm not a doctor and I shouldn't really be giving opinions about that. But what I've been saying for 20 years is that any radiation field is going to cause an increase in gravity and a decrease in oxygen, which is going to have an effect on the body. Any balanced field which has a negative charge, a harmonised field, will have a decrease in gravity and increase in oxygen. Let's get that right. So 5G, any radiation field will have an increase in gravity, decrease in oxygen. Any balanced field will have a decrease in gravity and increase in oxygen. And this thing about the hemoglobin, oxygen, and hemoglobin isn't just unique to 5G, it's any form of radiation field. So they were trying to hang the 5G, blame it on the spread of COVID-19. And in the beginning, I was saying, no, it's not just 5G and it wouldn't have caused it. But there are so many people totally hoodwinked by a couple of YouTube videos, and one by quite a credible video by a doctor standing in front of a whiteboard. I really liked his video. Even he was trying to point out that fact from a doctor's point of view. But it's any form of radiation field. And I even got bagged by a couple of, grubby little skeptics for making that comment one day, thinking they were expert scientists, but skeptics are just pseudoscientists. We know that all the time. Okay, so let's go through some of the questions. And another one question that came up, which came from people watching YouTube videos, was the beamforming or the phased array aspect of the 5G phones when you're in a 5G area, whereas the antenna is able to send a beam to the nearest 5G streetlight and reverse back to the phone. And the claim is it's a new thing with 5G. No, that's been around forever and a day, since 3G. I remember before 4G came in, doing experiments with mobile phones in developing our mobile phone radiation harmonizer, which, by the way, a lot of health practitioners around the world believe is the best in the world. And they say to me, where in Germany is it made? No, I developed it. We make it here in Victoria. And while I was doing my testing and research years ago, I discovered this beamforming aspect of mobile phones. The same thing actually goes on with Wi-Fi too. You could have a Wi-Fi router on over there and a laptop over there. And when someone's on the laptop communicating with the Wi-Fi router, you get a beam going from one to the other. And if you put yourself within that beam, you'll be under radiation stress. If you get close to the laptop when you're using the laptop's going to have a greater radiation field around it because it's got the Wi-Fi operating. And don't get within 1.5 meters of the router when it's operating, because its radiation field is very, very strong. Other things that create beamforming is a baby monitor. You have a baby monitor here, you have the baby monitor there, and there's a beam going between the two of them. You just want to make sure that the beam isn't going through baby. Not a good thing at all. So phased array or beamforming has been around for a long time. A lot of people ask, why is 5G dangerous compared to 4G? Well, 5G covers a whole area with charge, whereas 4G, a 4G tower, its radiation field, harmful radiation field, may only extend out to 50, 60 meters around it. Beyond that, you'll have a wave, and the wave is actually harmless, although I know some building biologists will go, no, the wave is not harmless because our radio frequency meters show it to be very high. But, all the testing we tend to do is testing a person against a radiation field, and when you put a person in an area where there's Wi-Fi operating and they're away from the beam and they're away from the technology, like the router and the device it's communicating with, you put them outside of that, you might have a high radio frequency reading, but when you test that field against the person, there's actually no radiation stress going on. 4G towers within 50 to 60 meters create that radiation charge coming out of the ground. And if you put a building within that field, then you're going to have a building that's fully engulfed with charge. It's the same thing that occurs with high voltage power lines, which I know it's not part of this talk with 5G, but it's relevant because there are government standards that say you can't build within 80 metres either side of high voltage power lines. However, I've seen brand new estates on the Gold Coast where the houses are right underneath the high voltage power lines. And there are some suburbs in Melbourne, older suburbs, which have houses and the schools underneath the high voltage power lines. That field either side, 80 metres either side, is where, like the mobile phone tower, you have a charge coming out of the ground. You build a building within that field and you're going to have a building filled with charge. Although I did do a Google Earth reading for a client a couple of weeks ago where they were living about 120 metres from some very large high voltage power lines, and I was able to measure the charge coming out of the ground, not to just 80 metres, it was coming out of the ground to about 160 metres. So the government standards sort of, half correct and sort of there, but it's not taking into account different what you put outputs of voltage. I'm not an electrician, caused by different types of high voltage power lines. Okay, more questions. I've actually got some questions coming up on the side here. Let's see what people are asking. I've got someone explaining what the geocleanse is. I won't go into that today. That's all over the website. Today is about information, not selling products. I'll mention, but that's okay. I guess an interesting question. A guy named Nick. How are you, Nick? He's got a stellar dome, which is one of our new products. I'll answer this question. That's a stellar dome there. Gorgeous product, actually. He's a truck driver and he's wondering whether if the stellar dome in his truck is going to move along with him, as in the charge, the neutralised field as he's driving along. Well, yeah, Nick, it will. Don't worry about that. Here's another question from a Julie. Does the amount of metal in a human body from pollutants and pesticides and dental work heavily have any effect, okay, on the body from 5G? That's an interesting one. Some people say they do, but I had a fall last year down 7 stairs here, and these walls behind us are concrete. And I broke my left arm down here, and I've got 11 pins in there and a plate that goes from there to there. And I've been in 5G zones and all sorts of toxic houses doing consultancy, and I haven't noticed anything going on with that. And here she's mentioning dental fillings too, and I've got a few amalgams. I shouldn't have them, so Leanne says. For me, I haven't found any. It hasn't affected me. And I'd take me as being the guinea pig there, maybe. Okay. Another question from 2 weeks ago: what effect mentally and physically will 5G have on our health? And that's a really good one. I talk about this all the time. Radiation has an effect on our meridian system. Our meridians feed energy to our organs. And if someone is unwell, let's say someone had a virus and it was in the liver energy would be down, be low, and the liver meridian would actually be turned off or be very low in energy. And reading meridian energy isn't science fiction. It's something that's very easy to do. I use this in my consultancy work. I don't know if you can see this. This is my biotensor. It's the best EMF meter in the world. It doesn't lie like a radio frequency meter or a Gauss meter. This was developed by a German building biologist and scientist called Joseph Oberbach, who died last century. In Australia, that's trademarked as a medical instrument, and its trademark description is as an instrument for detecting harmful radiation. Well, you can use the biotensor to pick up radiation fields, but you can also use it to measure meridian energy in the body, how well the meridians are faring. So radiation has a positive charge. Our meridian energy has a negative charge. It's a nice, light, healthy energy. Our organs operate within those negative charge frequencies, or they operate at different frequencies. That's when we're physically healthy. But if the meridian energy is interfered with by the negative charge has been interfered with by the positive charge from a radiation field, the meridian energy will drop, and the associated organ, its energy will drop too, caused by the meridian energy not supplying enough energy. The meridian is supplying enough energy, sorry. So if your endocrine organs or glands are affected by radiation, that's going to interfere with your hormones, so to speak, and your neurotransmitters. And if your neurotransmitters and hormones are upset, then your anandamine, your cannabinoid receptors, there's like 4 or 5 of them there. I know them from my bioresonance, not just off the top of my head. Can't spill them out straight away. Those happy hormones and neurotransmitters are going to turn unhappy, and it's going to make people feel depressed or angry or lethargic or just not really with it. It's going to have a big effect on us emotionally. Physically, by having the meridian energy interfere with to an organ, it's going to lower the organ energy, and the organ then may not start to actually function correctly. And there comes your physical effects. It also will have an effect on the pineal gland, and especially the pituitary gland. People, and I know myself, people who meditate, who know how to focus on the third eye, when there's a lot of radiation in the air, so to speak, or in radiation fields, it becomes very, very hard to actually focus and get that energy running in the third eye. And that's the pituitary being actually interfered with by radiation. May have an effect on your heart, so your heart meridian, your central meridian, your pericardium meridian, your circulation meridians, they can all, all their energies can be interfered with. But basically, because as individuals, as human beings, we're all individually different. It'll affect one person differently to another. Although amongst a group of say 50 people, you might find 30 people are affected in a very, very similar way, and 20 people are just totally all over the place, depending on where their weakness is. What I mean there is that we all have a genetic, I call it junk DNA weakness, and I'm not getting into DNA or anything like that. So, for example, mine's thyroid gland sitting over here, large intestine. Their weakness might be heart, someone might be liver, might be adrenals. It's all got to do with our major organs. And I know how to read this because with our coloured orgone pendants, if your weakness is thyroid, then you wear a blue pendant, because the colour blue, what it does is it is the same frequency of what's required for the triple warmer meridian, which is that one there running up here, which governs the thyroid and hormones. If that's interfered with, then you'll have a hole in your biofield, and that hole in the biofield then weakens our energetic field, and then we then become susceptible to radiation. However, if you wear the right coloured pendant to bring your weakness up, the hole in the biofield closes up, your biofield becomes bigger and stronger. When I say stronger, it has a greater negative charge, which is what our biofield should be. So positive charge fields are met by the negative charge of the biofield, and the negative charge neutralises the positive charge. Now, we've known that for a long, long time. Okay, more questions. A lot of these questions that came in last week are all about coronavirus. It's a lot of people actually really, really spooked by the so-called connection between coronavirus and 5G. As I said, I don't. It's all forms of radiation. I don't buy into the fact that 5G caused the coronavirus. There's other things going on there. A good question. How will we know when 5G is being switched on? If you're sensitive to energy, you'll feel it. If you watch the technology, as I was talking about before, on the street lights, then you'll know what's going on. Since I started talking or educating people about the streetlights. There's an amazing amount of people come back to me going, I've been, driving down this road or in that area, and I saw this and I saw that, and I've taken a photo, and what do you think, type of thing, is it operating? So I've got everyone looking in the sky at streetlights. Another thing, interesting thing about the streetlights is all of our sodium globe highway lights in Melbourne were all replaced about 4 or 5 years ago. And when they replaced them, I remember looking up at one going, what's that red disc or bulb hanging underneath the sodium globes? 5G antenna. Because as we know, one of the reasons for 5G isn't just for mobile data and 5G broadband. In the future, we'll be driving cars which will be driverless. So we won't be driving, the cars will be driving us to the pub, operating under the 5G system. They'll get their information on when to stop quickly, when to turn, when to change lane or whatever at high speed, because all the street lights will have the 5G antennas. A good question is just coming in here now from Sandy asking, is it true 5G was developed as a bioweapon for mind control and crowd control, for example, riots? No, I don't think so. When we were in Dixon in Canberra, it was a very laid-back shopping area. There was a Woolworths, there was a couple of cafes, a library, and a 3-level office building. And people were walking around as if nothing was happening. It was like they had no idea what was going on. We were feeling it, but the people were totally oblivious to what was going on. So as a means for crowd control, maybe not, unless they can turn it up, then that would be a problem. If you want to call anything a bioweapon for mind control, it's our digital TV. Well, many years ago, and I still say I'm the first in the world to actually recognise that digital TV is our most dangerous appliance in the house. Some people might say the Wi-Fi router. No, not really. But you don't want to get within 1.5 meters of a Wi-Fi router, then you're under a lot of radiation stress. What I found from digital TV is that, that's even better. If that's our TV, in front of the screen, like that, the shape of the screen is the radiation beam. And that can go for 150 metres, which means that if you're living in a suburb where everything's nice and flat and you're quite built up, you're getting digital TV beams which have charge going through your house from the neighbours. And so when you sit in front of a digital TV, the amount of radiation stress you're under is quite high. When you turn the TV off, that beam is still there. It's very subtle compared to when it's turned on, excuse me, but it's still there. I contacted the Digital Rollout Corporation back then. I sent them a little email saying, I'm a building biologist and I found this going on with digital TV. What do you think? What can you tell me? And they emailed me back saying, if it can't be measured with a radio frequency meter or a Gauss meter, it doesn't exist. Well, you can't. It's outside their spectrums or scopes. Then the next paragraph went on to say, if you dare talk about it in public, we'll sue you for slander. I thought, beauty. I was doing a talk the week later at Mind, Body, Spirit in Melbourne. I thought I needed extra content. What could be better? Fantastic. So in every talk, I've actually spoken about that. And I even wrote a blog about it, digital TV last year. I wanted to put in the blog the bit about the Digital Rollout Corporation, and our web developer at the time said, no, don't do that, too dangerous, But hang on, the Digital Rollout Corporation was disbanded after they switched over from analog to TV, the digital anyway. So that's, to me, is our real bioweapon. Another question here, can 5G 60 megahertz cause things like nosebleeds, headaches, respiratory problems, birds and bees dying? Nosebleeds, headaches, respiratory problems depends on the person, what's going on with them. When we were in Canberra, one thing we did look for was dead birds and no bees and things like that. But it was March and the sun was out and the flowers were out and the bees were everywhere. We looked at that. There were birds flying around. So that really dispels that myth. Like the amount of fearmongers out there saying, oh, 5G was turned on my area, all the birds fell out of the sky. No, I don't think so. They're probably more resistant to radiation than humans are because their biofields are much stronger. They don't know any better. There's a lot of reasons, esoterical reasons, why their energy fields are much stronger than ours. They don't pay tax. They're not browbeaten by governments into staying at home all the time. They don't have negative emotions like we do, although they do have a choice in some things. Anyway, another thing. Next question here from Maria: what is the long-term solution to neutralise energy and effect of radiation? Well, that's our geocleanser, our Stelladon. That's why we did the testing last year, to make damn sure that if we were going to say anything, we had done the testing and we provided video to show that. It's interesting, I see a lot of other EMF products in the market, like Scalar products and things like that, all claiming that the 5G, claiming that they neutralise 5G. So, sorry, Siri. And I've tested them all and none of them do. And I'm not lying either, and I could demonstrate that with video, but I don't like to have a go at other people's products by making videos to defame them. Let the people work it out via their actual experiences. Okay, I've got more questions here. They're coming in left, right and centre. Someone asking about a Faraday cage to protect from 5G, and that comes under the same sort of lines as shielding. And I've been saying forever and a day, we've done lots of testing on shielding, and 5G will go straight through shielding. Shielding protects from radio frequency wave, which is harmless, which is, what are they doing it for? And it's very, very expensive. I've seen shielding mosquito nets over beds costing $2,000. And if you had 5G, it's not going to protect you from the 5G. And if you didn't have 5G, you get earth radiation coming upwards out of the ground, and the net's not going to protect you from that. And the fissure grid, which is a grid of 70 metres square, which is of fissures which are like fault lines in the ground, creating under compression, which create kinetic energy, which is a charge above them. Those fissures do cause cancer. I deal with building biologists in Germany and Europe, and forever and a day they've been saying they call them water veins cause cancer. And I did a study on about 50 or so cancer patients last year as to where their houses were, and every single one of them had a fissure running through the house. So, shielding might sound fancy, and they claim they're scientific, but no, when you test the shielding against radiation against a real person, the person's still under radiation stress. Okay. So more questions coming in. I was only going to go for 3/4 of an hour, but if you want me to keep on going and answering more questions, I'm happy to do that. We'll make beer o'clock 5:30. Leanne's enjoying a champagne. Oh, she needs a refill, does she? Go through some more questions. Yeah, here's a question from Amy Smith. She's saying, if I understand you correctly, you are saying that the effects of high solar winds cannot be neutralised. No, Amy, what I'm saying, yes, we can neutralise the effect of high solar winds. That's the magnetoterralic energy that comes up out of the ground. And that's something we discovered 4 years ago and made changes in the programming to the geocleanser to be able to do that. I've got a lot of questions here about product, and I really didn't want to talk about product that's on the website. I really want to answer the questions about 5G. Where are we? Here's a question. We live in an area with underground power, so will 5G go on all of our streetlights? Yes, it will, absolutely. Yeah, another question here from last week or 2 weeks ago, pardon me, is will churches be affected by 5G? And this is a really big one. You know, a lot of people still keep their faith, even though, you know, the media likes to chuck rocks at the Catholic Church at the moment, it always has. A church's energy, no matter whether it's a Catholic church, a mosque, synagogue, a temple, you name it, they all have a nice, radiant, healthy negative charge, a healthy energy. That comes from the sincerity from the people of their faith and what goes on in the church. And you know, whenever I'm driving around, if I see a church, I always read the energy of the church, and it comes up at 100%. When we were in Canberra, we did pass a very old Catholic church. It was probably, when I say very old, it was probably built in the 50s. It was a real crappy looking poo brown brick. It was really weird. It was a traditional cathedral style church with a very high ceiling and the steeple. And it was really saddening to see that the complete whole energy of the church had been overtaken by the 5G charge. And that's going to have a really big effect on people who do go to church, because a lot of people who do go are tuning into that spiritual energy, like negative charge, healthy radiance is actually a spiritual energy. They dovetail into each other. They are one and the same. So those people who are sensitive to energy and enjoy their Sunday outing for an hour at the local church and really tuned into the spiritual energy, it's not going to be there. It's going to be gone. I see that as a real tragedy. More questions. Okay, someone wants to see a photo from earlier on. I'm really new at this screen sharing thing, so she wanted to see the antenna photo again, so I'll show it to you all again for Melinda. There's another photo of the repeater again. It looks a bit different to the other one. This was taken in Canberra. So for Melinda, that's one part of the technology you're looking for with 5G, in the 5G area. Here's a really, really good question. Okay, this is Robin. She lives in New Zealand, and she's asking how is 5G going to be delivered to the population over there? Well, it'll be the same as here. But you know, I do readings for people in different countries all over the world, day in, day out. And there's something about New Zealand that New Zealand people get a little bit funny when they hear this. They feel a bit offended. I'm not offending anyone. Is that when New Zealand's energy there is so toxic, it's worse than 5G. And that is because there's a bioplasmic energy, which is human generated from negative emotional pain body energy caused by all the Maori wars that went on there in history. And when you get lots of killing going on and anger going on, that emotional pain body charge from those doing the killing and doing the dying is so great, it becomes a radiation field that covers all of New Zealand, and it creates a charge coming out of the ground just like 5G does. So when they turn 5G on in New Zealand, they'll be going, oh, I can get 5G on my phone. They won't be going, oh, what's this horrible energy? In Australia, because we don't have that problem, although we did have areas of Australia that had localised because of what English did to Aboriginals, which was underrated as to how many people really were killed. You know, history books really like to lie. It's a bit more willing if you've all read 1984, how they changed history. It's a little bit like Facebook. It does happen, and it did happen in Australia, but not everywhere. But in New Zealand, it's everywhere. And that same thing goes for China too. Like they say they turned 5G on in Wuhan, they all got sick. Well, hang on. Wuhan's energy was so toxic, was as bad as New Zealand. So when they turned the 5G on in Wuhan, they weren't going, oh, what's this we're feeling? They're going, oh, I can get 5G on our phone now. If you've already got a very heavy bioplasmic charge over a whole country or a whole city or a whole zone, a whole area, which is as bad as, if not than 5G, when they turn the 5G on, all you'll get is something on your phone saying you've got 5G. You won't be feeling the effects because what's already been going on has been worse than 5G. The New Zealanders, like all humans, adapt to the energy of what's going on there. But when the New Zealander buys a geoclens or a stellar dome and they plug it into their house and activate it, it actually removes the bioplasmic imprint from what's gone in the past to the boundaries of their property. And if they turn the geoclens off or pull it out, it doesn't come back. So it was able to create holes in that dirty energy in places like New Zealand. And it's amazing how they report back to me like, wow, I've never felt anything like this in their entire life. No, they wouldn't, because they've never been able to escape it. It's always been there. We're heading on to 5:22, and I think we've run out of questions. I'll just check the bottom. Thank you everyone for attending. We plan on doing not another talk on 5G, but if we have developments, we'll do another webinar. But I plan on doing more webinars. I love this hour at 4:30 on Friday afternoon. It's Poets' Day, so you can all end the week with a bit of information and to ponder over the weekend. There's a lot of other topics which I'd love to talk about. On my website, there's been a number of blogs put up. I'd like to go through some of those blogs in the future and just elaborate on them. One of the later blogs was about vaulted ceilings and mold in roof cavities, and you might think, well, that's a really strange one. However, they are big radiation issues, and some people can be very, very, very sensitive to the presence of mold. And just to give you a little glimpse of that, we had a client last year who said every time she goes to mother's house, she can feel the Wi-Fi going. But the mother had a geoclens operating. And I said, no, it's not the Wi-Fi. There's something going on. So I had a look with Google Earth, and straight away I could see that there was a mold problem, and the mold was actually in the roof cavity. And mold in roof cavities is a really common thing, especially when you have an exhaust fan in your bathroom, which is sending all that steam into the roof cavity and it can't escape. So after a period of time, you get mold in the roof cavity over the whole of the ceiling. It may not be in the living space, but mold creates radiation, it has a charge to it. And so also combined with the shape of a roof, which is the underside of a pyramid, with the ceiling there, with the mold on the ceiling, that shape projects an energy downwards into the living space. And so with this girl, I said to her, no, you've got mold in the roof cavity. That's what she was feeling. She was very sensitive to energy, and she wasn't wrong in what she was saying, but it wasn't the Wi-Fi, because you actually can't feel Wi-Fi when it's turned on. And I get challenged by a lot of people when I say that, because a lot of people go, oh, no, I can feel the Wi-Fi. And I said, no, it's actually, unless you're within 2 meters of it, you can't feel it, or you're within the beam. And so this woman bought, under my recommendation, a stellar dome, and the dome shape radiates a charge outwards and up, which neutralizes the charge coming down from the mold. And she comes back after taking the dome to her mother's place with the mold there and go, oh, wow, didn't feel anything. That was fantastic. And that was the mold that was doing it. She was super sensitive for it. So thank you everyone for being part of this today. I'll get my Zoom operating skills, or maybe I might get an L plate for it up to speed for the next one. I'll get my screen saving a little bit better, or sharing, I should say. Have a great weekend, and hope to see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you.